Greetings, travelers!
Greetings, travelers! It's Monster May, Monster May, Monster May.
Monster May, and it's also coming shortly Mother's Day.
Mother's Day. Gotta love the mothers. I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother too. So I'm
I
gonna
was
do
a
a
single
shout out.
dad for a while, so does that count?
No, you already have
No.
your day later.
Yeah, it's
Or
true.
before. I can't remember now. Before. You had your day before.
I did.
So
Okay, I don't
yeah.
remember it. My kids forgot to call me. So yeah, so Mother's Day, the
Mother's Day.
time-honored tradition, second Sunday of May.
Yes.
Honor your mother and motherly figures with
And
gifts, cards, flowers, special
well,
meal.
just and remind them. I think one of the biggest things about Mother's Day, like obviously cards and stuff like that, and a little shout out to my sisters and my daughter who are amazing mothers. But I will say one of the things that always makes me feel wonderful is when my kiddos or people I've been a mother-like figure to tell me the impact that I've had on their lives. So
That's
if you
always
get a
nice.
moment, just take a moment and tell them something that made a difference because as mothers, we get a lot of the crap too. So I think it's a good thing to do a
No, I
shout out.
think I think honestly, Mother's Day, Father's Day, considering they're both invented days that don't have any historical significance, I think it's fun that you should if you were a single mom, you should get extra credit on Father's Day. If you're a single dad, you should get extra credit on Mother's Day. So yeah, celebrate those two. Why
Absolutely.
not? They get 2 days. And
That is
then
very
May 15th is Buddha Day.
Buddha Day. So what is Buddha Day, Mark?
That is celebrated the first full moon of the ancient lunar month of Vesca, which I think I'm pronouncing right. It usually falls in June. This year it's actually taking place in May 15th. And the United Nations celebrates this in its headquarters. They started that back in 2007 or 2000. And it's celebrating the birthday of Gautama Buddha, the enlightenment and the death. The way you celebrate it is you can attend a Buddhist ceremony. They generally open the Buddhist temples to open public on this day. They'll sing hymns and stuff like that. But the main way to do it is to commit to the 5 precepts of Buddhism, which are the rules that let you lead a moral and ethical life. And if you're, a strong Buddhist, you follow those strictly. But if you haven't, you can just use this day to kind of think about them and use them as daily affirmations. Or finally, just give to charity.
Well, I think it's always a good point to self-improvement is what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think self-improvement is vital. So taking time to figure out what you could improve about yourself doesn't mean a
Yeah.
single thing is wrong. It just means that maybe you need to take a little bit of time,
Yeah,
right?
the thing about Buddhism is there is no God. There are basically atheism. It's the fourth largest religion in the world. You basically have Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. And it's more like a psychology than everything. And it's just really good, nice day to reflect. And you don't need to know a holy book or anything. Buddhism is not anything about that. Just impact other people positively, just like mom and Mother's Day.
Yes, just like it. I like it a lot. And
All
so
right. Yeah, we can't go wrong with that. It's a busy week for holidays. So
it is a busy week. And guess what, Mark?
we're hitting the road.
Well, not that, but I actually have something. But well,
Oh,
let's talk about that. So we are hitting the road. We next week will be at the Hodag Festival
the
in
Hodag Heritage Fest. Yes.
In Rhinelander, Wisconsin, which is near the very north part of Wisconsin. I grew up partially for a couple of years in Wisconsin, and I think we're going to try to hit where I grew up and do a little video on it, which is
Yeah.
Green Lake, Wisconsin.
We're
It's
heading
a
that
little
way. Might as well. We've got a few other monsters we're going to try to hit. We're definitely going through Elkhorn to try to see the Beast of Bray Road. The
yeah.
nerd in me is making a stop in Lake Geneva so that we can pay homage to the birthplace of the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons. So,
Woo! 50th anniversary.
yeah, so we'll definitely try to hit the Dungeon Museum and some other fun stuff like that. There's some other Wisconsin monsters, but we'll talk about those later in the episode and stuff. But
Yes.
the
But
Hodag
what is the
Festival, excited.
yes, I was gonna say it's very, very exciting what's happening. So that is very cool. And then
Anyone, Michigan on over, north US, you should head over and come see this amazing event. So
Yeah, come see us because it's not often we're going to get up that way. So travelers, please, we'd love to meet you in person. We're only there for Saturday. So come on over. And if you've seen the videos, which we played on one of our traveler live ones, but take a look at it because it looks like so much fun. There's music. They actually have a Hodag creature that's dressed up you get to interact with. So much food. So it looks like a party. So come, come, come.
we played video on our Nerd Talk appearance that we did a couple weeks ago. So yeah, that was fun.
Yes. With that, I also want to do a shout out. We're getting all this out of the way to CatBatArt. I'm including their links, but I met this amazing artist, and a lot of what she does is coffee art, where she uses coffee to do the backgrounds and stuff like that.
Oh,
And
like
she has,
coffee staining?
yes.
It's like watercolor, but with coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And she has every kind of Dungeons and Dragons creature amazingness, but she has an entire cryptid collection. And she gave me this, Mark, which is her Dogman pin, and her pins are shaped like caskets. It's the best thing
They're like
ever.
no pictures. Yeah, I love it.
I'm going to do a picture to share that with, but check her out at CatBatArt everywhere or CatBat Studios. So check her out and see if you can find anything there you like and love, because she has the entire collection. And I was so super. I couldn't figure out which one to choose. It was pretty amazing. So I did choose the Dogman because that's terrifying and I like the hunter. The other thing is we have breaking news.
We have breaking news.
So this is actually kind of funny because our amazing producer revealed a fear that she has that I didn't know is the deepest blue hole in the world was discovered with hidden caves and tunnels believed to be inside, which is in Mexico's Chetumal Bay. I think I said that correctly, Chetumal Bay. And there's an entire labyrinth of caves underneath, and it goes down at least 1,400 feet. So there's a whole thing by livescience.com. We're going to put a link, but I didn't know Beau has a fear of holes in the ocean. So
I have a fear of the ocean, period. So that's my one fear I have not beaten is deep sea.
I cannot wait to do cruising with you because I know that might be coming up soon.
Might be. We're in early talks. Man, that's rough for me. No, when we were doing Freaky Florida, we were going into Weeki Wachee. Actually, it was Eerie, Florida. We were going to Weeki Wachee, and I did not know they don't know how deep that hole is. The spring, they can't measure it because the longest thing they've done, which I think is around 1,400 feet, it didn't hit the bottom. So
really?
And the water pressure and the flow is so strong, no diver can get down there. So they're still studying that one, and that's a tourist attraction.
Well, that's super weird.
We'll have to do a thing on Weeki Wachee and mermaids at some point. We'll get Beau, clackety clack that, Beau, for a future episode idea. So
yeah, Muncy watching mermaids anyway. Well, but that's all I have to start us off. What are we talking about today?
Well, because we're hitting the road for the Hodag Festival, and we did touch on it on April Fool's, right? We talked about the great hoax that George Shepard did of the Hodag, right?
Yeah.
Where he had caught it. I mean, it looks like something. Let's refresh on what the Hodag is, right? So if you're in Rhinelander, you usually come in via Highway 8, and you'll approach this fork in the road, and you'll see this giant statue. It looks like something out of Where the Wild Things Are when you look at it, right? It's
yes, it truly looks like a monster.
Yes, that's the Hodag. It's this mythical creature that is an important point of culture in Oneida County. It's at the head of a frog, the grinning face of a giant elephant, thick, short legs set off by huge claws. The back half is like that of a dinosaur with a long tail with the spears at the end. And the sculpture there is like 30 inches tall, 7 feet long, and it apparently eats only white bulldogs. So that's why Callie doesn't like the Hodag, because it only
Wait, it eats what?
white bulldogs.
How is that even a thing?
It's because there's a football team nearby that's the Bulldogs. And
Oh, okay.
so that's the joke. Because the local school embraced the Hodag as their mascot. Now, the Hodag
Yeah.
originally was black in all descriptions of everybody who'd seen it and everything. It was this giant black creature. But then when the school adapted it as their mascot, suddenly the Hodag became green because the school colors were green. And it was either change the school colors or change the Hodag colors. So guess who won that?
Wow.
But yeah, Eugene Shepard, he's this guy who basically he had the initial reporting on it. He was digging into this as we did a recent episode on lumberjack myths, right? And lumberjack legends. Rhinelander, huge lumberjack town. They had the White Pines. And as the White Pines were dying off and the lumberjack industry was dying off, this guy started promoting these stories, and he wanted to draw people to the area because it's farmland, it's a beautiful area, there's lots of other businesses opening in the area. So for tourism, he brought back the story of the Hodag, and he saw it supposedly, but he couldn't get anything about it, so he made a copy of it and then took a blurry photograph of it. How cool is that, right? That's the class. And then later, when that wasn't enough, he caught it. They had subdued the creature by putting rocks in front of its cave and then getting it with chloroform. And then they brought it to the Rhinelander County Fair, the first ever. And they had it in a booth, and you could see this creature, and it would growl and snarl and move, and then he'd rush people through for their own safety. He learned the ringling secret, right? To keep them moving so they can't look too close to see behind the curtain. And and that's what it was. But then Smithsonian and things like Philadelphia Inquirer were actually writing about it as though it was real. And the Smithsonian wanted to come see this specimen. And he's like, oh, we blew it up with dynamite. It was too dangerous to live.
We blew it up with dynamite.
Yes.
Interesting.
And it turns out he had made the whole thing out of wood and all that. We discussed this back at April Fool's. And now there is a replica of that initial sculpture that's at the town museum up there. And then we also have the Hodag store up there, right? Because they've embraced this creature.
Yes.
And there's a great bit. Then Senator John F. Kennedy and his wife, Jackie, in 1959 visited Rhinelander during the early months of a presidential campaign. I think it turned out okay for them, and I think it was because they did this. But he presented a gift of a Hodag sculpture to the city. And I'm going to do my Jackie Kennedy impression here, or my John F. Kennedy impression here. Sorry, don't do Jackie. I'll do John. So,
oh, wow.
We find the Hodag to be a very provocative conversation piece and are delighted to have so interesting a souvenir of our visit to Rhinelander, because they were given a Hodag.
Oh my God. That is so funny.
Anyway, that's the hoax. The legend goes back because Gene Shepard, he saw it in 1893. He was a timber cruiser, and he stumbled into a logging camp and had encountered this vicious beast, the Black Hodag. And it's crazy, the story he wrote. And that's why it's kind of like our penguin guy down in Clearwater, where he saw a creature that shook him to the core. He thought he saw a Nessie type creature, but since nobody believed him, he made the concrete feet and started running around on Clearwater Beach so that people would take him seriously. And then that's when the Smithsonian comes in and says, all right, the only thing that can make these footprints is a giant 14-foot penguin. And then everybody starts talking about, oh my God, yeah, we saw the penguin. I think this is one of those, he wanted to prove that, yes, the Hodag was real, because he saw it when he was a kid, and now as an adult, nobody was listening to it. So did he see it? Gene Shepard was kind of a goofy guy, and he was known for doing the hoax later. But the joke still there. But I think there's some truth to it.
You have this whole theory on what this actually is, though.
Right. And that's what I'm going to get into. So now we have to get in the wayback machine. You ready for this?
Oh, I love the Wayback Machine. You know that.
And we're going to have to travel to another part of the United States. We are going over to the mounds.
Oh.
All right. We are going to the mound builder cultures of Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Most of the mounds now are still well maintained, the ones that have survived. The problem is we destroyed so many of them.
Which is so dumb.
Yeah. This is the way it works, right? So as the settlers move in, after they've passed through the Appalachians, they're overwhelmed with the sheer number of these earth structures, right? Ohio alone had over 1,000 known mounds that were marked. Now, most of these sites were mostly used as landmarks or curiosity locations, these settlers. And as land became more scarce and more valuable, the sites were destroyed, period. We're terrible people.
We are.
There was some investigative research done, though, during this period. And they discovered there were basically two forms of earthworks created by these mound builders. First were burial mounds, and those were probably the oldest structures. And they were the easiest to date because they had artifacts and bodies in their bases, right?
Yeah.
Those can be carbon dated. Those could be things. Now, similar to the pyramids, which were half a world away in Egypt, the smaller mounds would have one burial chamber that would be filled with valuables and artifacts. And then the larger mounds had fewer artifacts, but more burial chambers. So like families, maybe. We don't know. The archaeologists and anthropologists kind of say maybe it was just the more important people commanded the single smaller mounds, and that's why they had more treasures with them. And it's an odd discrepancy.
Kind of makes sense, though.
Yeah. But the second type of mound is the one that's kind of hard to understand. And these are earthworks, and they don't have anything in them. They're shaped usually into effigies of animals. Now, again, archaeologists suspect that these were basically points of historical, religious, or political significance for the mound builders, right? Some, like Stonehenge, align to celestial events, but 90% of them, we don't know. It's all guesswork.
Yeah.
We don't know. And this Wayback Machine doesn't work as well as we'd like. We wish we could talk to the people. We don't have the TARDIS from Doctor Who, which translates for everybody that's near it. So when we try to talk to the mound builders, it doesn't go well. And we wind up running and trying to dodge spears. And
there is the stuff that people keep throwing at us. Yes, that has become a problem.
Yeah. All right. So the mound builders, we're going to do a little history here. Trust me, gang. It all is important. They basically are divided into three basic eras, right? Divisions span thousands of years. So by just classifying it into these three eras is kind of, we're generalizing, but that's us looking back at history. That's kind of how things work. The further back you look, the less you know. Like, look at us. We know the 80s like crazy, and that's 50 years ago. And we know World War II pretty good, but World War I gets a little fuzzier. And then the Spanish-American War is that, I love how Eddie Izzard calls it the French Banana War. The things get more and more fuzzy the further we go back. And now we don't even know if the Trojan War actually happened. We think it did. Now we thought it was a myth, but now we're finding out maybe it happened. That's how these things work. And that's the same thing with us over here. The stuff further back is going to be fuzzier, even with the Wayback Machine. So by 1200 AD, all of them are gone, though. That's all we know. They just basically either disappeared or they just stopped creating earthworks. We don't really know, again, what happened. They're just gone. Some say an apocalypse, an abrupt end of some sort. But they weren't different tribes. That's the other thing. These are just three cycles in their society, right? Like we went from agricultural society to a industrial revolution society. And that we went through. That's kind of what these guys did, we think. But they may have been different tribes that moved in and took over the areas. We don't know. I think it's just one people evolving, right? I think that makes more sense to me.
I agree.
All right. So the three cultures are the Adena culture, the Hopewell culture, and the Fort Ancient culture. And they're found all over the major rivers of the area and in a lot of mountain passes. And they're in greater numbers as the lands kind of flatten out of the mountains.
Okay.
So now along these mountains is an effigy mound, and it is called Alligator Mound, and it is in Granville, Ohio. The mound is over 200 feet long, 6 feet high at its highest point, and it's on top of a bluff overlooking Raccoon Creek Valley. And when viewed from above, it looks like a four-legged animal with a round head and a curled, maybe spiked tail. Does that sound like anything we just discussed?
Oh, a little bit weird. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
So since it's close to the Newark earthworks, it's kind of thought to be Hopewell culture because that was the era that area was built. But again, recent studies kind of say maybe it's the later Fort Ancient culture, and they're named after places where these things were found and discovered. So don't think Fort Ancient is older than the Hopewell and stuff like that. It's tricky. This is all archaeology, and we'll have to deal with that another time. But effigy mounds are just, as we discussed, are difficult to date. Even today, we have trouble dating these things. So
Yeah.
the settlers said the natives of the area called it Alligator Mound. So that's what the creature is. And for those of us who know, there aren't a lot of alligators in Ohio. And I don't care how far back you go, not a lot of alligators in Ohio. Now, we do know that the Calusa tribe down in Miami did have some trading with the natives up here in Ohio because they found some basalt axe heads in the Miami Mystery Circle that came from this area that would have been, treasures, and they were treated like holy relics and stuff. So we'll have to do the Miami Mystery Circle, or you can pick up Freaky Florida, available from fine bookstores everywhere. But
And on our
anyway,
website.
it is on our website. Yes, you can get a signed copy there, or find us at the Hodag Festival or one of the other festivals we're doing. But
Yeah.
early 2000s, an archaeologist named Brad Leffer, who is an amazing person. This guy does not get nearly enough credit. He figures out something that had kind of been hinted at. He thinks that Alligator Mound is actually a depiction of a native creature called Mishipeshu,
Oh,
otherwise known as the underwater panther.
okay.
Okay, and now this creature is mostly Ojibwa culture, but a lot of the other native cultures follow this. There are three major creatures in native beliefs. There is the great serpent, which lives in the earth and rules the underworld. There is the underwater panther, or Mishipeshu, who rules the waters, the oceans, and the lakes, and all that. And then there is the thunderbirds in the sky, right? They rule the skies. And we live on the earth, and we've got to deal with all three of these things. That's their belief. The Great Lakes tribes, which go all the way up to Rhinelander and up to Lake Superior and all that, the underwater panther is in all their belief systems because he is the greatest of all the water powers. And the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwa, they speak of the creature often in their teachings and tellings. It's also translated sometimes as the Great Lynx. And it's a mixture of creatures in its description. It has the head of a giant cat, but covered in scales. It has spiked spines like an alligator down its back to its long circular tail. It has great claws like a bear. And it is just this huge creature, and it lives in rivers and lakes. Now, the Algonquin tribe believed it to be the most powerful of all the underworld creatures, even greater than the great serpent. The Ojibwa were convinced it was actually the master of snakes and water creatures. And the Thunderbirds were its arch enemy. And we're going to talk more about this when we get back.
So I have a question because you said before we come back, underwater, you said underwater. And the thing is about so far, Hodag, a lot of people saw it on land, but when we say underwater, it doesn't just mean that it lives in water because there's a ton of lakes and rivers and all kinds of aquatic places up there.
Yep. And this creature, even though it's said to live in the deepest part of the rivers and lakes, that's where it sleeps. And it can cause great pulls with its tail, and its roar can bring the storms, right? But a lot of the stories say it's benevolent, but most of the stories say it's pretty much this evil force that could only be appeased with offerings or sacrifice and stuff like that. But as we know, what creature that the mound that we think is Mishipeshu now is called the alligator mound, right?
Oh.
Alligators live in the water, but we see them in a lot of times not in the water, right? They're walking from water source to water source, even if it's many miles. So maybe it does have some characteristics of an alligator. And I got a lot to get into, but we need to take a break.
We'll take our break. We will be right back after this word from our very amazing sponsors.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
Most know Florida as the land of endless sunny beaches, but the state is home to numerous eerie legends and mysterious creatures. The Everglades is home to the elusive skunk ape. In Key West lies an uncanny doll reputed to have a life of its own. Join Mark Muncy and illustrator Carrie Schultz as they uncover the history behind the state's creepiest stories and unusual locations. The Dark Side of the Sunshine State, presented in Eerie, Florida, from History Press.
We're back. We all back.
All right. So we're still in the Wayback Machine. We're going to talk about a Jesuit missionary named Claude de Blon. And he had spoken to some Ojibwa natives. And they talked about a group of warriors that had gone to the home of Mishipeshu, which is an island in the Great Lakes. And they didn't say which one. And they went to grab copper for their home. And the natives up in the Ohio Valley area and the Great Lakes area all were known for mining copper. But they said the minute they left the island, Mishipeshu attacked them for stealing the shiny toys.
What?
Right? The Mishipeshu loves copper. So all warriors were slain except for one. And he returned to others to warn the others, but before he perished. So when you look at the pictures or pictographs of the underwater panther amongst these tribes, they look an awful lot like Alligator Mound. So what we think has actually happened is, as usual, us settlers were convinced that the natives were stupid. So if, let's say, you march into this land and he goes, what the hell is that big sculpture over there that you guys have made on the top of this rock? And they go, oh, that's the underwater panther. And then we go, panthers don't live underwater. And they're like, oh, it's this great beast. It has a spiked tail. It swims in the water. It kills you if you disturb it. And if you don't appease it. And then they're like, oh, we got those. They're called alligators. That's our word for them. And so the natives go, oh, your word for Mishipeshu is alligator. Yeah. Okay. Well, then it's Mishipeshu Mound or Alligator Mound. So the years later, when they are all driven away and dead, and then the new settlers move into the area, what's that mound? Oh, the natives called it Alligator Mound.
So, it's interesting because you think about that people were, I'm going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. People were smaller, like me and you are 6 feet tall. We're not tiny people. We're not tiny people by today's standards either. Like, we're pretty big. You think, though, back then, what was the average height of people? Was around 4 or 5 feet tall, right?
Yep, pretty much. Like
So,
5'4", 5, 6. Yeah.
So then you have an alligator, which we lived in Florida. We saw these things. They are huge and bridled by being in certain areas and not having, I mean, they are a dominant creature because they grab you, they roll,
They're
look
dinosaurs.
like dragons.
Yeah, they're 12 to 15 feet long, easy sometimes, and huge. We love Gatorland, and you can see
there's a travel for everyone. Gatorland.
Gatorland, or go down to the our friend Dave Shealy's place, the Skunk Ape headquarters. It's right on Alligator Alley, the old original Alligator Alley, and there are alligators everywhere there. Yeah, if you want to see them in the wild, that's where you go. But Gatorland and then Everglades Express is great. There's a lot of great places to go see alligators. But anyway, now we've talked about this, right? So we've got to do a quick side trip over to Ohio.
Okay.
And we'll talk about Serpent Mound, right? This is the great serpent who lives in the underworld. Again, this one, he's associated with lightning and death. Among the Cherokees, Uktena. Among the Sioux, he's Unkantala. The Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek. Everybody talks about the great serpent. He's invisible. He brings the rains. He's the reason for earthquakes. And he has one giant eye on his head. And sometimes it has horns, depending on which pictographs you're looking at. And the Thunderbirds chased him into the ground, which is why he's not everywhere, right? Now, the Thunderbirds, we think, are very much like petrosaurs that, fly around, and dinosaurs, and they make the thunder as they fly and stuff like that. Now, Serpent Mound is in Adams County, Ohio, and it's huge. It is an effigy mound that basically represents an uncoiling snake along the top of a ridge. Now, it's over 1,400 feet in length. And when it was originally sketched by early archaeologists in 1848, it was described as being like 5 feet high and a width at 25 feet. Now, most of it is washed away in places, but they've preserved it pretty well. It's a UNESCO heritage site, so it's pretty amazing to see. But again, it's one of those no artifacts to date it because it's an effigy mound. So thought it's Adena culture because there's 2 Adena burial mounds nearby.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a Fort Ancient culture burial mound nearby. So excavations, we think, maybe make it Fort Ancient culture are the ones that actually built it. Now, Fort Ancient is before Adena, but after Hopewell. So, but anyway, the head of the Serpent Mound is aligned with the summer solstice.
Oh,
and the tail,
okay.
The tail is aligned, and some of the coils are aligned with different equinoxes and other solstices. So it's pretty cool. Now, the head, again, white man comes into the land, and he sees that head. He thinks it's a snake eating an apple because, oh my gosh, it's Christianity. It's a snake and the apple, right? These natives have found Jesus. But no.
Which they did not. So cool.
Yeah, if you looked at it properly before that head had kind of faded a little bit, you realize it's the one eye, right? It's the great serpent. It's the eye of the serpent. So we call it Serpent Mound, it should be Great Serpent Mound, I think.
Agreed.
Now, we have to thank a guy from Harvard University, Frederick Putnam.
Okay, why do we thank
him? The guy who saved Serpent Mound from destruction. He had Harvard purchase the site and turned it into a public park, which was then transferred to Ohio State Archaeology Association. And now it's a national landmark.
Which is awesome.
Yes. Now, did these creatures, Mishipeshu, the great serpent, are they just creatures of belief systems? Are they creatures of myth and legend? Or are they real? We're going to go to the town of Crosswick. Now, this is on the Miami River in Warren County, Ohio, near our wonderful Loveland Frogman, not too far out of them. And in 1882, we have a news article. 2 young boys fishing in a small creek that led into the river. A large monster with reptilian features that looked like a great demon charged at them. It grabbed the older boy in a mighty clawed hand and ran away towards a large sycamore tree. It crawled into a hole with the boy, and the younger boy ran for help. Some men nearby heard the screams and came running over. Soon the whole town was worked into a furor, and over 60 men went to save the boy from the mighty beast. And they began to chop at a tree with an axe. As they struck, the creature emerged from its hiding spot and released the boy. It raced away faster than a horse, according to the witnesses. It ran up a hill over a fence, and it went for over a mile before scrambling into a hole under a rocky outcropping. The creature in the open was basically described about being 40 feet long. Now, it was not mentioned to be a dinosaur, even though that word was kind of being used at the period. In the period, it had just started becoming a word, but it was described as a great snake with arms and legs, and it propelled itself with its tail. Now, that's a completely different view from the dinosaurs that, we at the period were just dragging their tails behind them, which was the common theory at the time.
One thing that you said that I just want to make sure we clarify for everybody. A gator can outrun a horse at a quarter mile.
Yes. And
they can also run up trees, and I've witnessed it myself. It is
climb
terrifying.
fences. They do all this stuff. And now the creature retreated into the earth, never seen again. So the question is, did the people of Crosswick have an encounter with a dinosaur, or did they encounter maybe Mishipeshu, or possibly even the great serpent? Now, it didn't have one eye, but does it also sound a little like the Hodag?
Yes.
It's got the curly tail, it's got the spiked tail, it's got claws, it climbs trees, it lives in the earth. It's like a reptilian with a beastly face and spiked horns. I think Mishipeshu and the Hodag are one and the same.
I think so too, and I actually think that it's entirely possible, and I'm sorry to piss everybody off by saying this. This will go up with my vampire things. I think they're gators or crocodiles. I think they're, even if it's a variant of it, and it could be, because there are caimans who look, all these creatures look very, very different when you look at them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it could be, because I've been where a huge gator is up close and personal and run away from them. Thank you, living in Florida. That's what I believe. I personally believe that.
We went to Everglades Outpost where you can swim with a gator. The wonderful Chris has his partner gator, Casper, and you can actually pay to spend an hour in the water with the gator and behind a plexiglass. And he's actually out there with the alligator because they've become close. You have to be very well trained to do that, because it'll still take your head off in a second. It goes by movement. It's a natural thing. But we were there one day, and it was right during mating season, so they were all the gators around were making their roars, and it was pretty amazing to watch Casper make his roar while some poor girl was behind the glass and experiencing it for the first time. And then one of the big gators, which was a monster in another lake, shut everybody up when he did his big bellow. And, so that reminds me of the bear growl that supposedly the Hodag does, right? Is the same sound that the alligators make.
Maybe we should include a link here for our listeners to a YouTube video that has this. Do you think we could do that?
Oh, I'm sure we can. Yeah, I'm sure we can. And I'll put a link up to Casper's experience if you want to go swim with a gator too. And there are so many bits about this story, right, that just fit when you look at it from you're just a few feet back. Now, staring at the individual things, they're all completely different. But when you look at it through the lens of just a little fuzziness, right, you just start going, wait a minute, that fuzziness of history, these things sound an awful lot alike. The Crosswick serpent sounds like some of those early lumberjack stories of the Hodag. And that's right along Lake Superior. That's right along Lake Erie. And those are the places where Mishipeshu lives. Now that waters are cold, so something up there, an alligator that lives in those waters would have to have adapted slightly because it's so much colder than the waters down in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Louisiana, where in Mississippi, where the alligators all live. But up there, maybe it did have kind of a heavier set and might even had horns or something that looks like horns.
Yeah.
You know, we look at that disease that makes the rabbits grow the strange stuff on their head. And we think maybe that's the source of the jackalope legend. And these were cowboy legends and lumberjack legends. We already discussed those. That's what this is. I think these are just tall tales enhancing of something that people actually saw. So suddenly the Hodag goes from being the great hoax to what if it was the great lynx, the underwater panther?
First of all, this is interesting. And I think it, from a cryptozoology, and I would love to hear from any travelers who are super into these creatures. What do you think, as we're pissing you off by saying we think it's a gator, but or something like that? Because the other thing I think people don't realize is that these things travel. Like a lot of people think, oh, the crocodiles are only on the Nile. No, they do travel. And you also have things like the sturgeon and some of the catfish and stuff that can look really rough.
And they can make a whirlpool when they dive, which is one of the things. All right, so real quick, I'm going to give some fun other little monsters that we're going to be thinking about while we're up in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Wisconsin. We have some monsters up there that don't get enough love, right?
Okay.
So we already know Bigfoot's up there. The large number of big feet in Wisconsin. There's a lot of Sasquatches up there. But one of our favorite things that we've been discussing, Puckwudgie type, there's the rock tossing gnomes. And they're in Fifield, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And they're about 3 to 4 feet tall with the obligatory coned hat. So these guys are classic gnomes. And supposedly is area called Hollycross Road, that if you stand there, you can see a ghost of a young mother killed on the tracks. But if that doesn't get you, there's the gnomes. If you throw a rock in the woods, it'll be thrown back by these guys.
So they throw rocks at you. I like that.
You throw a rock out there, they throw them back.
Okay.
So,
as you should.
Lake Pepin up there has their own lake monster called Peppy. She goes back to Native American folklore as well, lurking just below the surface. And she's supposedly the inspiration for water skiing, as it was the only way people could survive going on that lake.
Oh, wow.
And she's actually another one where they've kind of embraced it. So she's the spokesperson for clean water. So don't be mean, keep my water clean.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
For Beau and you, we have the Vampire of Graceland Cemetery. He's in Mineral Point. And he was a police officer, supposedly found this vampire lounging around Graceland Cemetery. He chased it down only to be cut off when it jumped over a fence that he had to try to scale. Now, Witch Road, as the Witch of Witch Road, imagine that. An isolated woman, dilapidated house, lived there over 100 years ago. Ominous chanting can be heard from the house. And of course, she's in unholy rituals. So obviously that land is cursed. There's nothing else.
Obviously.
This is one I think you'll like. There's a road called Chicken Alley. And this is in Seymour, Wisconsin. Looks like chickens, but they vanish into thin air. So people say they drive down that road and they hit a chicken and they go, oh no, and they get out to check the chicken and nothing is there. Others have seen the entire flock basically storm the road, but then disappear before before any of them can get hit. You know what Wisconsin's got? Ghost chickens.
I love that so much. I want to know, because here's my theory. Of course, I think that most ghosts cosplay. They're not,
Yeah.
but I want to know what ghosts went. You know what we should do? I got a plan. We should be chickens.
We should be chickens. Yep. We'll be chickens. Oh my God.
We'll
Okay.
be chickens.
All right. And then, of course, our big boy, the king of Wisconsin, that is not the Hodag, but the one that gives many people a nightmare. And that is in the town of Elkhorn. And that is the Beast of Bray Road, which
So
we
tell
discussed.
me about the Beast of Bray Road again.
All right. He's a big guy, walks on two legs, has a wolf-like face about the size of the bear, giant red eyes, also known as the Wisconsin werewolf.
Okay.
It was originally only sighted in Elkhorn, but now it's kind of all over the state. And usually near fresh roadkill, stuff like that. So it is the classic dog man. There are several movies about it. Our wonderful friends at Small Town Monsters did a thing on it, and we will be discussing him after we get there. We're going to make a trip to Bray Road on our trip to Hodag.
That's what
I
I'm
have us
saying.
lined up with an actual witness, so I'm excited.
Not at all creepy or anything like that.
No, so there's some more monsters that we'll be discussing as we go up there. There's other fun stuff. There's a goat man. There's some more lake monsters.
The cool part of our show, Mark, is we get to talk about all these things.
Yeah, I mean, we get to find all this stuff. There's the Devil's Lake monster. There's Lake Winnebago monster. All this fun stuff. Don't worry, we're looking into it all while we're up there, because that's a future episode, future book. We'll make it all happen, gang. We promise.
Exactly. So, well, this is fun, and I'm excited to go do this traveling. We love traveling. It's our thing. So let's talk about a couple places they can visit. So they can visit the Hodag Festival.
Hodag Festival, or you can go to Rhinelander, Wisconsin at any point and go to the Chamber of Commerce and see that giant statue of the Hodag. Alligator Mound and Serpent Mound.
I was going to say the Serpent Mound they can go visit. And
Serpent Mound is open to the public pretty much. And Alligator Mound it's one of those, it's in a cul-de-sac area of a housing complex, so it's a little trickier to get to, but you can get there. And it's better to be seen from the air, though, and there's no real way to see it from the air. So that's one of those ones you kind of just looking at a picture is fine.
Where would we send them to go swim with the alligators again? Because that sounds like a terrible idea.
Everglades Outpost, and we'll post the link to that in the show notes, and that's where you can go swim with the gators, or go to Gatorland, see Savannah and the crew, and tell them Eerie Travels sent you. They love us there. Or there's another gator place down the Everglades I'll get to, and Dave Shealy's Skunk Ape headquarters. You can drive down through Alligator Alley and see some alligators. Exactly. Say hi to Goldie, the second largest snake in captivity.
So awesome. Much fun. All of the things.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I am thrilled. I cannot wait to be up there, and then, go out to Bray Road when you're in Elkhorn. So good luck with that. But we'll do that another time.
Exactly. Well, travelers, we're excited to see you. We hope to see you at Hodag. So please, please make sure you reach out to us and come see us, because we'll be up your way. And like I said, one day we'd love to meet all of our travelers from up north. And Mark, I think with that, you need to take us away.
Yeah. Thanks again to our patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to join that, eerietravels.com takes you right to it. And as well as our other links and fun stuff there. Our shop is now open. You can get Carrie's illustration of Mishipeshu / the Crosswick Serpent. And hopefully soon we will have the Hodag picture while we're at the Hodag Festival. We're premiering it at the Hodag Festival. So excited for that.
So excited for that. Stickers soon to follow after the Hodag Festival.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And then we will also be just thanking everybody that we meet, because we love our subscribers. So just come on out. We love our travelers. Just say hi. And even if you haven't joined us yet, we'll talk you into it there. So,
exactly.
I think a lot of you listeners
to the fold.
We've recruited a lot of you guys in person, so we'll keep that going. So we love it. But with that said, thanks again as always, and keeping us on the road and keeping us traveling. Please support our sponsors. I think we should get Destiny to do a Hodag song after this. we'll talk to her soon. So, but anyway, gang, with that, we put some miles on the Wayback Machine today, man. We went back to some ancient cultures. We traveled all over the lumberjack communities again. This Monster May has been living up to its name. I hope we gave you some fun stuff, and we hope you're enjoying it. And when you're on the road to the Hodag Festival and you go by Bray Road, maybe take Witch Road, and then maybe go see Peppy the lake monster, but keep the waters clean and watch out for phantom chickens. And we'll see you on the other side.